All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the session of the 2024 Northwest Interlibrary Learning Resource Sharing Conference. Today is September the 18th, and we have got a Choose Your Own Adventure with Ex Libris using Rapido to enhance current partnerships and create new possibilities for resource sharing with both Megan Weldon and Mike Richens from Ex Libris, a part of Clarivate, representing Rapido today. And we're going to get those slides going. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. We plan to make these recordings available once captions have been added. Expect this within about 3 weeks after the conference. We will take questions from the room and from virtual attendees on Whova. Our virtual colleagues should post questions on the Whova Q&A tab. And don't forget to upvote your favorites. After the session, please complete the survey to enter our prize contest. And with that, Megan and Mike.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you everyone for being here at Inwell with us, both online and in person, and thanks to everybody who have put in so much work to make this experience happen for all of us today. Okay, well, when I looked at my slide deck before I submitted my slides, there was content on this slide, but I'm not seeing that here today, so hopefully this is a one-off and not how we're going to experience our slide deck today. But really, this was just to introduce. We're going to talk today about choices that you have within Rapido experience. And those choices are relating to the themes of optimize, personalize, and connecting, all themes that all of our various functionalities of Rapido relate to. And that is kind of what's going to frame our conversation today. So optimize is going to be the first theme here. So let's look at how Rapido can optimize resource sharing and hear from a few users on this at their libraries. So from library colleagues at Florida Gulf Coast University that are using Rapido, we hear that this optimization with Rapido comes through reducing mediation, as our staff used to have to heavily mediate any requests that come in. With Rapido, there's been less staff mediation. From Ithaca College, colleagues at Ithaca College share that with Rapido, it does a great job of knowing where to push things, and the automation makes sure we can focus on things that are tricky to find or the things that are stuck. We're not taking time to do repetitive manual tasks. So these libraries and others, what does the Rapido experience actually look like, and why is it a good experience for them? So with Rapido, we're seeing that 9 out of 10 requests are unmediated, meaning your end user places that resource sharing request, and then it ends up in the hands of the correct lending partner. 9 times out of 10, that's happening without borrowing staff having to touch that request first, or without that request having to wait on the desk for somebody else to come in and process that request. Staff, when they are processing requests, have a centralized management system for their digital and physical requests to be all in one place. One of the things that we're going to dive into a little bit later is sets for supporting staff workflows and organizing the way that they engage with their work. Rapido libraries are connecting with one another via pods, which are shared upon and shared and agreed upon terms for those interactions. So we'll speak a bit more to that too, but those pieces make it a lot easier and have a lot provide transparency to your end users and ease configurations for your staff. There's also load balancing within the system, time zone awareness, and then flexible copyright and mediation management as well. So though 9 out of 10 requests are automated, if there are particulars with the requests that make it so that you would want to engage with it, that does require your staff expertise, you can be stopping those requests for staff intervention before they go out to those partners. So thinking about sets, they're kind of a foundation to how you manage and engage with your work within Rapido. So though many of the requests are mediated, we know there are different tasks that you might need a set for. Or maybe going back to earlier today, maybe you have a set that helps you tackle your quests, right? So we have, you can make sets to help you tackle those requests that need conditionals, requests that need renewals perhaps, requests that need you to print the pull slip, or requests that need you to download and deliver. So staff can create sets to support the particular functions that they perform in their library. And those sets can be shared within their department, unique to them, be available for others to access, etc., so that what you have in front of you and your view of in Rapido really helps support the way that you engage with the system and supports you manage the tasks that are important to you. So here we have an example of a lending staff person or a person who engages in the lending workflow making a set. They're making a set based on statuses that they want to include in that set and exclude labels from that set as well. So maybe they aren't involved in the testing at their library. The folks who are involved in testing are adding a test label or their other labels. This staff person is excluding the request with that label from their set to define what they look at and see in their workflow. So thinking a little bit more about that staff experience, here we have a screenshot and it looks perhaps like it loaded correctly. On the right-hand side here, we have if a staff person were to access their task list in Rapido, here they have a view of their sets. This person is accessing their borrowing. They could tab over and access their lending. Maybe they only look at borrowing, so maybe they only have borrowing sets there that support their needs. So maybe they've got mediation-related requests, conditionalized digital, conditionalized physical. They can separate things out based on what's important to them. Maybe their team labels things with their name on it if they're, the troubleshooting person and everybody wants this person to be tackling them. So you can have sets that help you find what is important to you in your work. And then the kind of the request list on the left-hand side of the screen here, as a staff person maybe access that list, access a set, they're seeing those requests that are in front of them. That first one that we have there, we see two labels on that request, external partner and rule of 5. So perhaps this library has a copyright mediation rule in place that's labeling this request as having triggered the rule of 5. Staff can then go through and work on that request as desired. They also maybe are using a mediation rule. Maybe they've used the partner-based mediation rule in this request and it has an external partner label on it. So maybe they've gone through, exhausted all of their reciprocal partners. Now it is letting staff review it before it goes out. There are other mediation rule kind of things that we can build into our Rapido workflows, but here's just an example at this library. Another example here, this staff person has put a request forward for purchase, and it's got that in Rialto cart label on it because they've pushed it. They use the Rialto integration to be able to acquire this item from via Rialto as opposed to from their partners. So though 9 out of 10 requests get processed unmediated, we do know that there are still opportunities and needs for staff to be engaging with the requests and to support them in making that a really efficient opportunity. So if requests do need staff intervention, there are workflow solutions in Rapido. I don't want you to pretend that it's just everything magically happens. There are those requests that still need your time and your expertise to engage with those requests. One of those actions that Chris acknowledged earlier in his presentation is the Enrich from Global Index. So here we have a request that maybe it didn't get filled automatically by our partners because instead of our end user going in via the discovery experience, they went in via the blank form. They'd be in that rare 13% of Rapido library users who are doing that as opposed to 79% who are going in via the discovery layer. But maybe they went in, they gave us bad data via the request form, or they gave us mismatching data, or maybe they requested the 2025 version that nobody has yet. So we can hit this Enrich from Global Index action. It will search the global index to see what the results are. And if we were to select a different record, or a different result, it can pull in the data into our request record and then match with a partner who can fill that request. Or maybe there isn't a partner that we are already connected with who can fill that request. We'll from here be able to find new partners to be able to route that request to for request fulfillment. So overall, there's a lot of options within Rapido to optimize your experience, but what does that look like? From libraries, we hear that it saves their staff time in processing requests. Our colleagues at University of New England shared that 50%, they save 50% time, or they've decreased their time spent on requests by 50%. So it's a huge savings for staff. Colleagues at Florida Gulf Coast University shared that their requests are actually getting filled faster, not just via their wonderful Rapid ILL network of partners, but for those physical items too. And that kind of goes back to the majority of those requests end up in the hands of the lender before they wait for the borrowing staff to touch them. That takes that time off that request lifecycle, and those requests are getting filled faster via more automation. Then 96% of requests are filled by that first lender that they land on. So those requests aren't bouncing around to different partners, getting rejected, not being able to be filled. That's saving the library, the end user, and the lenders all time in that equation, because the lenders aren't having to spend time rejecting requests that they can't fill. And that's because of the real-time availability within Rapido. It knows not only what is lendable from your lending partners, but what is currently actually available. So maybe a book is normally lendable at your library, but it's currently missing, or it's checked out, or it's at a technical services location. So Rapido is not going to be routing that request to you as a lender right now. Instead, it's going to be finding a new lender to be filling that request. So those are just a few kind of pieces within the optimize aspect of the theme within Rapido. And then I want to speak now to the theme about personalizing your experience with Rapido. We are all users in different online spaces. We're using the Whova app this week, etc. We're all used to engaging with online interfaces that are really customized and personalized to how we expect to be using it, and how that provider is expecting us to be engaging with them. So with Rapido, you have a lot of options for personalizing your end user's experience. And though there's ways to personalize your experience as a staff person, maybe your sets, your mediation rules, and other pieces, today when we're talking about personalized, I'm thinking about your end user's experience within Rapido. Okay, so what does that end user experience look like for libraries who are using Rapido? Colleagues at St. Olaf College using Rapido found that Rapido has been making it an easier experience, it's an easier process for our users to make requests. Colleague Chris, who's here today from Cal State, for the patron, it is very intuitive. And from colleagues at East Tennessee State University, they found that using Rapido for the user experience allowed them to decrease their spending without downgrading their user experience. So what are different ways we can personalize that end user's experience within Rapido? So end users with Rapido, the majority of the time, they're putting that request in at the point of discovery as opposed to going out to a blank form. So with that frame of with that context in mind, if they're accessing your discovery and then finding the resource sharing request offer an option at that point, know that there are ways that you can customize that discovery experience. So for example, do you want them to be able to see the resource sharing service and option before they sign in or afterwards? Do you want resource sharing services to be visible to user groups who don't have access to resource sharing? If you don't allow resource sharing for alumni, why are they seeing language about resource sharing, right? Maybe you only want it to be visible to those staff, faculty, undergrads, or whichever user groups do get resource sharing. How does this look? What does your resource sharing options look like for your end users when it's a title that is held in your library? Do you want them to get a resource sharing option if you own the item? Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. And how does that answer differ if that you own the item, but it's not currently available for a user? Maybe it's, again, missing or checked out right now. Maybe in that scenario, you would want them to get an offer to be able to place that resource sharing request on that item. And then how does this come into play if it's a full text, etc.? You have options to shape when your end users are engaging with that resource sharing offer within their discovery. So what does that look like? Here we have a discovery environment where our end user knows what they want. They've gone in and they've searched the title. Already within that discovery scope, they've changed their search from just looking at my library to everything. You can change the language, basically all of the various labels within discovery, that's customizable. So maybe you want it and saying, instead of saying everything, beyond my library or library plus, whatever the language is that you use to speak to your resource sharing services at your institution. And then here we have, on the first result, they have found what they're looking for, so they can click that result. And now they get the offer. This is what I'm talking about with the Rapido offer, Rapido Tile resource sharing service. This is an ebook example because yes, we're working on delivering ebook functionality with Rapido, and that's coming very soon. So here we have an ebook example, and here our end user has the terms visible to them. They can get it delivered in 24 hours and keep it for 14 days, 24 hours, 14 days. Maybe they don't need the whole work. Maybe they just need a chapter, and they have that option to hit get it and have that come forward for them. If they were looking for a different title or a physical book, or it was coming from a partners with different shared terms, those terms would be visible to them. So maybe it was not an item that was available via an ebook via these partners, and instead was available via your US pod friends. It would have that 5 day, 7 day, 10 day, whatever term it is for delivery, and the loan period that that pod of library, that group of libraries via that pod has agreed upon. Then once they hit that get it button, they have this resource sharing request form. It's much more abbreviated, and you'll see that there are different fields there. You can customize the language on those fields. You can customize whether or not those fields are required, which fields are visible. Another aspect of the user experience we have here is this request it functionality. It's another way you're bringing your library service to your end users. So if you enable this functionality within Rapido and they go to an Amazon result, they can select this bookmark and it will automatically pull in that data from that Amazon search result to populate a resource sharing request form. They can submit it and it can go through that cycle for fulfillment. Another aspect of the end user experience is the library card here. The end user has that transparency throughout the process with the updates along the way, requested and processed by lender, etc. If it's a digital item, they have that download option. They're also, of course, going to get email notification where they can download it from there. And as a library, you can choose how many times they can download that item, and what that download expiry period is, and of course, customize the labels in that library card to support their experience with your library. Then what does this personalized experience actually look like, or what is the impact for that at your library? Again, 9 out of 10 of those requests are filled without mediation. 86% of the requests were filled in less than 24 hours, according to our colleagues at University of Derby. And then East Tennessee State University here, they shared with me some different numbers that spoke to how using Rapido has increased their borrowing volume. So by removing barriers within their resource sharing experience and making it easier for their end users to access resource sharing within their discovery, they saw borrowing request increases for their end users. This isn't a story that's unique to East Tennessee. It's something that I see across my Rapido libraries. A part of my work is meeting with folks after they go live and continuing those conversations so that it's an active conversation and relationship. And I had a library one day say, Megan, my borrowing request volume went up 300%. I sat there worried about the next thing that they were going to say. And they said, and we're so excited to be able to support so many more users with the same amount of staffing. I actually looked at our data because it felt like maybe something wasn't working because we had less work to do. And then I went in and found that our numbers were up 300%. And so that's because the automation, those libraries are able to serve more of those users, and they're able to do it really quickly here. And then now I know we're running on time here, so I'm going to turn it to Mike to speak to our next theme of Connect.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. So continuing along with the Choose Your Own Adventure theme that we stole from folks earlier today, we're going to talk about Connect, and of course, resource sharing is all about connections. And want to talk about the ways that Rapido allows you to connect with partner libraries, and not just to connect with partner libraries, but as Ithaca College notes here, in a way that they could control their costs and minimize their costs. And that's just a lot of mess right there. So anyway, so let's talk through this. You might be familiar with RapidLL pods, and Rapido has adopted the pod concept so that you could work with other Rapido partners and define what your terms are in that particular pod. So it might be that you have a consortia pod that has certain loan periods and delivery expectations. It might be a state pod that might be a little bit different, or a regional pod, or a countrywide pod. We have all these pods that Rapido partners utilized, which is the section that is in the middle. And you might have your consortial pod first, and then in terms of priority, it extends out from there to maybe national partners. So Rapido really makes that part really work well for you. And when Megan was showing the terms earlier in the offers, you know, the delivery time, the loan period, That again is based on the Rapido pods. Now, you don't just work with libraries in Rapido. You, of course, as Megan noted, work with RapidLL partners if you're using Rapido. And we've developed a system to really integrate with other platforms. So there's a number of different ways that you can integrate with other systems. And a couple here that we have on the slide, we have an integration with Project Reshare. A lot of libraries are doing peer-to-peer with ILLI libraries. The CCC's Get It Now service, and also Reprints Desk. And we're also excitingly working on integration with DocLine, and that should be available relatively soon. So another thing that you might be familiar about Rapido, or maybe not, is that it was developed on the Alma platform and Primo. But we don't want to limit Rapido to just libraries using Alma, libraries using Primo. So we are working to extend Rapido to other systems. And so currently it also works with Sierra. And we worked on a development partnership with Drew University early this year to get it integrated with EDS and Folio. You can see here in the screenshot sort of a walkthrough of a Drew University user finding something in EDS, and then that being kicked over to the Rapido Discovery, where they're able to see the terms and they could place the request. And they're very happy and thrilled about that workflow for their users. So in the Higher Ed Cloud platform, the Ex Libris Higher Ed platform, we have what are called Cloud Apps, which are sort of little utilities that allow you to do different functionality. And we have some for Rapido as well. Two I want to mention is that we do have a Cloud App for the CCC's Get It Now service and the Reprints Desk Article Galaxy service. So if we look at the latter, the Article Galaxy service, you could see here what it looks like to place a request. You might have a list of requests that you're working on in Rapido, and you're considering that these are maybe something you want to purchase. Maybe you've exceeded copyright, or maybe you've exceeded partners from the systems that you're working with. So you launch the Cloud App, and you get on the right side a list of the requests that you have pulled up and the potential cost for that material. And you're able to place a request easily from there through Reprints Desk. Another thing that's really well integrated is if you're doing purchase on demand type workflows in Rapido, there are a couple options for that. One is the purchase action, which puts the request into an acquisition workflow, or if you use Rialto, you could use the search and market action, which then searches the Rialto marketplace and allows you to very easily and seamlessly purchase something from that marketplace, all within one request view. Another thing that we developed recently with Linda Hall Library is what we call NetLinda registration. And this is essentially when you're working with partner libraries or other folks that you might work with. Maybe it's a museum, a law library, an independent researcher, and they don't really have a platform they could use to interact with you. This provides them with an option to register to borrow from you. And it creates a partner in your Rapido system that you could use to support the request flow. And on their end, they're actually able to search in your discovery to find materials and to place requests. And once they place those requests, it goes into Rapido. We're able to identify, who these are coming from easily and be able to manage it in that very nice request flow that Rapido provides. So with the Connectant Network, libraries have seen really wonderful results. So East Tennessee State University, for example, has seen a 40% cost reduction for resource sharing. The way that Florida Gulf Coast University chose their adventure to work with Rapido, they're seeing 0 transaction fees. So they're not paying another library for requests that are processed. And for those libraries that adopt Rapido, a lot of them have found that, a very high percentage are being filled by other partner libraries that are using Ex Libris solutions. Here we have 83%, and that's Rapido, RapidLL, and other Alma partners. And finally, US libraries that have adopted Rapido. 47% of them have adopted Rapido and dropped another resource sharing solution. So in terms of next steps on this adventure, if you are interested and want to learn more, here is a QR code that will get you in touch with the Rapido team. And you're welcome, of course, those of you that are in person to connect with Megan and myself. Those that are virtual, send us a note. We are also, for those of you that are here in person, we are doing a demo of Rapido later this afternoon and one tomorrow, so to be sure to drop in to those. And I'm going to end by just a couple of quotes from Rapido users. First, from University of Wisconsin Madison, noting that Rapido has saved staff time and ensured faster turnaround time for loans with the elimination of several steps in the resource sharing and also most transaction fees. University of New England has noted that joining the community did not disappoint. We were thrilled with the savings and improved service. And finally, St. Mary's College of California has said, for any libraries considering Rapido, I would suggest they look into the product because the process has been so seamless. And just for that reason alone, I think that looking to Rapido is really valuable. So on that note, thanks a bunch. I really appreciate the time. And I don't know if you could see our emails there, but I think they're on Huba. So make sure you connect with us.
We do have some questions in the chat and just a few minutes left. And I bet a lot of people are asking, there are variations on this theme. Is it possible to use Rapid as an add-on to Iliad, to Tapasa? Can you connect to InReach? Lots of questions.
Yeah, so in terms of considering it an add-on, libraries that adopt Rapido, it usually is adopted as their primary platform for request management. It was designed to be that way. Anywhere from the end user experience to staff workflow management, everything there. So it was designed to potentially replace a solution that you currently use. That said, we do have a lot of libraries that have adopted Rapido and have continued to use another platform like Iliad. And there could be a number of reasons why they might do that. One reason might be because they might use Iliad for specific workflows with specific partners, and they want to sort of maintain that. Another reason might be that they have decided to adopt Rapido, but instead of sort of adopting Rapido one day and then dropping what they're currently using, which seems crazy the next day, but libraries have done that, they want to sort of transition off of their current platform and might do it over a period of a few months rather than right away.
Very good. A softball. Well, we see if anybody in the room has a question. How many libraries are currently on Rapido?
Megan?
Best guess is good.
Megan says 134, which sounds right.
But counting is weird because we have all
Megan,
of
you can use that microphone.
So 134 is the number I'm given, but counting is weird because all of the SLSP libraries are using Rapido, and that's hundreds of libraries, but they count as one. So 134 plus or minus couple hundred. So that's the answer for today.
I will say we use Rapido and we also use Iliad, and in the mediation phase in Rapido, it is helpful for like adding additional information that I'm going to end up needing to put in anyway manually in Iliad, and it's just a little bit easier in Rapido. I'm from a big university, so we have like a lot of programs that we're using, so I know that's maybe not feasible for everybody, but I find it helpful to have like be on the back end, putting in that information earlier, having it go through other systems before I have to do it in a clunkier one.
Great. Thank you.
Very good. We got lots of hands.
Question from the ebook train. Can you share any information about what's going on with Rapido and ebook ILO?
What's going on with Rapido and ebook lending? So that is currently actively being developed, and we anticipate that should be ready for actual use late this year or very early 2025. And I can't give too many specifics, but the sort of approach there, and we've worked with a lot of libraries to kind of talk through what this might look like, and worked with our colleagues in ProQuest, the books team, on this as well, to kind of understand how we might be able to support libraries while also making sure that the folks that are providing the content are going to be supportive of such workflows, which is very important. And so there's a couple models that we're working on, going back to your presentation, Mark, earlier today. One is sort of like the DRM free type model, which will be supported, but also will support a model that requires some sort of token and some DRM restrictions. So, but we're very excited to finally get that developed in libraries, being able to use Rapido for ebook lending.
All right, first of all, as a Rapido user, I'm excited about the ebooks. This may sound like a gotcha question, and I truly apologize, but it is a known issue. You'll see it on the boards. We've talked to you guys specifically. I'm at WSU Pullman, and on our campus, we have 2 libraries. So when we go to Rapido and we go to the lending queue, we literally have to go through each request individually, glance to see whether it's at the main library or the science library, and then choose the ones to pick out for the particular library, and then print our slips. So it's quite time consuming. And I know it's a known issue. I was just wondering if you could update me on the process of fixing that, because that would be great news for us, just to have an update.
Let's connect on that one and work on a solution or getting you an update. I don't have something to share right at this moment while the mic's in my hand. Thank you.
Sounds good. We are just about at time. We're going to do one more quick question.
I'm just curious if the ebook lending is running truly only through Rapido, or if it will be available to Rapid ILL customers as well.
So the initial development is just Rapido.
Excellent. And with that, we are at time. If you have further questions, please add them in on Whova in the Q&A, which we can see after the fact. Or if you are here in person, meet up with them later in the day. Thank you so much.